Everyone thinks when a mafia boss stops touching his wife, it's about another woman. They're wrong. When Dae-jung Kim started treating me like a ghost for 21 days, I thought he wanted me gone. I was catastrophically wrong. Someone put a hit on my life, and my husband spent 3 weeks systematically destroying every threat without telling me a single word. Tonight, I'm wearing the most dangerous dress I own, and in the next 30 minutes, you're going to watch a marriage that was seconds from death come back to life in the most explosive way possible. If you've ever loved someone so much that silence almost killed it, stay with me. This gets intense. And I promise, you'll understand why some marriages are worth burning down walls to save. The penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay was a prison disguised as paradise. Sienna Monroe stood before her floor-length mirror, adjusting the emerald silk dress that clung to every curve like a weapon. The slit reached mid-thigh. The back dipped dangerously low. The neckline promised everything. She wasn't dressing for her college reunion. She was dressing for war. 21 days of silence. 21 days of living with a ghost who shared her 12,000 square foot penthouse but wouldn't touch her skin. 21 days since she'd overheard Dae-jung Kim on that phone call, his voice cold as winter steel. I don't care what it takes. End it, before she finds out. She'd assumed the worst, assumed she was what needed ending. But here's where it gets crazy. The guest suite door opened, footsteps in the hallway, that particular weight of presence that made air pressure shift. Dae-jung Kim didn't enter spaces. He conquered them. 6'2" of controlled power in a charcoal Tom Ford suit. Black hair styled back, emphasizing sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those eyes, dark, dangerous. Eyes that used to devour her whole and now barely glanced her direction. You're going out. Not a question. A flat observation. Howard University reunion. You said you'd come 3 months ago. That was 3 months ago. Before the silence. Before the distance. Before this frozen wasteland. I'm going anyway. She expected him to leave. Instead, he stepped closer. The scent of sandalwood and expensive secrets wrapped around her. Not in that dress. Sienna's hand froze. She turned slowly. Excuse me? You heard me. Change. 21 days of cold shoulders and now he wanted to issue commands? I'm not changing. Sienna. Her name was a warning. The voice he used on men who owed him blood. That dress is inappropriate. For what? Being seen? Being remembered? Being anything other than the ghost you've turned me into? And this is the moment everything explodes. You think I haven't been paying attention? His voice dropped to something dangerous. I know you take your coffee at 6:15 every morning. Black, no sugar, standing by the east. Windows. I know you're on chapter 7 of your manuscript, the scene where your protagonist realizes she's been running from the only person who truly sees her. I know you bite your bottom lip when you're thinking. I know you haven't been sleeping. Your light stays on past 2 a.m., and I know that dress is for someone else's eyes, not mine. The air crackled with 3 weeks of unspoken words and untouched skin. You're right. Sienna said softly, dangerously. It's not for you. Because for 3 weeks, you've made it crystal clear you don't want to look at me. Don't want you? The laugh was harsh, broken. Sienna, not wanting you would be easier than breathing. Not wanting you would save us both. From what? From me. From what I am. The enemies I've made. The blood on my hands that never washes clean. Wait for it. His hand lifted, cupped her face with devastating gentleness. The Takahashi Syndicate is moving on the port routes. The Volkov Brotherhood wants my territory, And the Reyes cartel? They know about you now, Sienna. They know you're the one thing in this world I can't afford to lose. So they're coming for you. And I thought if I could make you hate me, push you far enough away, maybe you'd leave. Maybe you'd be safe. Sienna's breath caught. That phone call. End it before she finds out. I was ending a contract on your life. Before you found out someone had put one there. The word mine hit her like a physical thing. Possessive. Absolute. Everything she'd been craving for 3 weeks of starvation. You could have told me. And made you a conscious target instead of an ignorant one? He shook his head. I'd rather have you hate me and alive than love me and dead. That's not your choice to make alone. Her hand covered his. I'm your wife, Dae-jung. Not your responsibility to manage, your partner, your equal. And you took that away when you decided silence was protection. I know. Raw, broken. I know, and I'm sorry. But tonight, his gaze dropped to her dress, something heated and hungry flashing across his face. Tonight, you're not going to that reunion looking like every man's fantasy unless I'm standing beside you, making it clear whose fantasy you actually belong to. Possessive much? With you? Obsessively, dangerously, completely. He leaned in, mouth hovering above hers. So yes, Sienna. Wear the dress. Drive every man in that hotel insane. But no, I'll be right there, making sure everyone understands. His lips brushed hers. That you're mine. But nobody tells you what happens when a mafia boss decides to reclaim his wife in public. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel glittered like a jewel box of memories and expensive regrets. Sienna walked through the grand ballroom with Dae-jung's hand possessive on the small of her bare back. A brand of heat that announced ownership to everyone. And everyone glanced. The emerald dress moved like liquid sin. But it was the man beside her, commanding, dangerous, devastatingly beautiful, who stopped conversations mid-sentence. Sienna Monroe? A woman approached, eyes calculating as they swept over Dae-jung. Oh my God, and this must be the mysterious husband. Kim Dae-jung. His handshake was firm enough to make her eyes widen. I've been looking forward to meeting the people who knew her before she became mine. Deliberate, territorial, absolutely effective. Women's gazes shifted from appreciative to envious. Men's interest cooled under Dae-jung's stare that promised consequences. Here's what nobody tells you about territorial men. We need to catch up. What have you been doing? I got married. Dae-jung's thumb traced circles on her spine. Built a life in Seattle. Started writing. Writing? What kind? Romance. Dae-jung answered before Sienna could. She's brilliant. Her manuscript is going to devastate the industry. Sienna's heart stuttered. He'd read her work? During 3 weeks of silence, he'd been reading her words. And what do you do, Mr. Kim? A man joined, his gaze lingering on Sienna's neckline too long. Dae-jung's hand tightened imperceptibly. Import, export, international logistics, maritime trade routes. Technically true, minus the underground networks and territory wars. The man shifted uncomfortably. Sounds lucrative. It allows me to give my wife everything she deserves. Dae-jung pulled Sienna closer, lips brushing her temple. Including my complete attention and protection. The message was clear. She's taken. She's treasured. And I'm dangerous. But wait. This is where possessive becomes dangerously sexy. You're enjoying this, Sienna murmured as they swayed on the dance floor, no space between their bodies. Watching men realize they never had a chance with you? Absolutely. His mouth grazed her ear. Watching them understand this. His hand slid lower, near the slit revealing her thigh. Is mine to touch, And theirs, to only dream about? Even better. You're territorial. With you. Primitively so. He spun her, then pulled her back against his chest. 3 weeks of not touching you nearly killed me, Sienna. Every morning watching you in that silk robe. Every night knowing you were in our bed while I was exiled. Hearing you through the walls. Knowing you were close but completely out of reach. You could have touched me. Any night. And put you in more danger? The Takahashi made their move because they thought I was distracted, vulnerable. His arms tightened. But they underestimated how far I'd go to eliminate threats to what's mine. I've spent 3 weeks systematically destroying every person who thought they could use you against me. Sienna turned in his arms, searching his face. Destroying how? Not with bullets. He read her concern. With information, leverage, economic warfare that makes death look merciful. The Takahashi lost their shipping contracts. The Volkovs lost their banking access. And the Reyes. His jaw hardened. They lost people who thought loyalty was negotiable. And now? Now you have a security team you'll never see, but will always be there. Now every transaction includes your safety as non-negotiable. Now. He cupped her face with both hands. Now I'm done protecting you by pushing you away. I'm keeping you close, keeping you informed, keeping you mine in every way that matters. Good. Sienna rose on her toes. Because I'm done being kept in the dark. Done being protected like I'm fragile. I knew what I was marrying into, Daejung. I chose you knowing the danger. The difference is, I chose to face it with you, not hide from it alone. His kiss was possession and apology and promise. Deep. Consuming. The kind that made the ballroom disappear. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. Let's go home. The reunion is over for us. His thumb traced her bottom lip. I've spent 3 weeks starving for you, Sienna, and I'm done being patient. And this is where patient men become dangerously impatient. The penthouse had never felt more like home than when Daejung closed the door and immediately pressed her against it, his mouth claiming hers with 3 weeks of pent-up hunger. The emerald dress was expensive, beautiful, and absolutely in the way. Daejung, I've watched you in this dress all night, watched every man want what's mine, watched you move like art and sin and everything I've been dying to touch. His hands found the zipper, drew it down with agonizing slowness, and now I'm going to worship every inch of skin I've been forbidden to taste for 3 weeks. He lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her to their bedroom. Their bedroom. Not the guest suite, not the exile, and laid her on silk sheets that still smelled like both of them from before the silence. I love you. The words fell like a confession. I've loved you since you walked into my life and refused to be intimidated by what I am. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that again. Sienna pulled him down, hands in his hair, heart finally whole. Then show me. Show me what 3 weeks of missing me looks like. Show me how you're going to make sure we never let silence come between us again. And he did. With hands that knew every curve, with lips that traced every forbidden place, with whispered promises in Korean and English that painted their future. Honest, together, unbreakable. But here's what nobody tells you about dangerous men in love. When Seattle dawn broke through their windows hours later, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his hand in her hair, breathing finally synchronized after 3 weeks on separate rhythms. The threats, Sienna murmured against his skin. They're really gone? Minimized. Controlled. But never completely gone. Not in my world. His fingers, traced patterns on her shoulder. Which is why from now on, you know everything. Security briefings, business meetings, dangerous players, shifting alliances. All of it. Partners. Equals. He tilted her chin up, dark eyes serious. I won't lie and say there's no danger, but I promise we face it together. Every decision that affects you, you're part of making. Your voice matters as much as mine. And if I want to go to another reunion in a dress that makes grown men forget their names? His smile was slow, dangerous, promising. Then I'll be right beside you, making sure they remember mine, making sure everyone knows the most beautiful woman in any room chose me, keeps choosing me, will always be choosing me. Sienna kissed him slowly, deeply, sealing the promise. Always. Outside their windows, Seattle woke to a new day. Inside their penthouse, a marriage that had nearly suffocated under protective silence took its first full breath in 3 weeks. It wasn't perfect. Daejung's world would always carry shadows. Sienna's independence would always push against his protective instincts. But here's the truth nobody wants to admit about real love. They were done letting fear make decisions, done letting silence substitute for communication. They were partners now, truly, in love and danger and every beautiful, complicated thing between. 2 weeks later, Sienna sat in the penthouse library, laptop open, working on Chapter 8 while Daejung handled a conference call in his office. The difference was she could now hear the conversation, understand the players, know the risks. When he finished, he appeared in the doorway with 2 mugs of coffee. Hers black, no sugar, his with cream. The Nakamura family wants to meet next week, he said, settling beside her. They're proposing an alliance that could stabilize the West Coast territories for the next decade. But it means you'll need security at your book events. They'll want to know about you. Use you as leverage for good behavior. So I'm your weakness and your strength. You're my everything. He kissed her temple, which means they need to understand that harming you isn't strategy. It's suicide. Sienna saved her document, turned to face him fully. Then let's meet them. Together. As partners. His smile was proud, fierce. As equals. And this is where most stories end, but real life keeps going. The days that followed weren't perfect. There were arguments about security protocols, disagreements about how much information was too much, moments when Daejung's protective instincts clashed with Sienna's independent streak. But they talked through them, every single one, because they'd learned what silence costs, learned that protecting each other meant trusting each other. That love without communication was just beautiful suffering with a ring on it. 3 months after the emerald dress and the reunion that changed everything, Sienna published her first novel. Dae-jung threw her a release party at the penthouse that brought together her literary world and his dangerous one in ways that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. Here's what I learned about love from watching them. Marcus Chen, Dae-jung's second-in-command, gave a toast that made everyone laugh. To Sienna, the only person who ever made the boss beg for anything, and the only person he'll never stop protecting. Dae-jung's response was quieter, meant only for Sienna's ears as they slow danced on the terrace overlooking the city he controlled. And to you, the only person who ever made me believe safety and love could exist in the same breath. 6 months later, when a new threat emerged from the East Coast syndicates, Sienna was in the war room with Dae-jung's inner circle, offering strategic insights from her research on psychological warfare for her second novel. A year later, when she won a major literary award, Dae-jung sat in the front row of the ceremony with a security detail so subtle nobody noticed, except the 3 rival organizations who got the message loud and clear. She was untouchable. But here's the real ending nobody talks about. 2 years after the night of silence breaking, Sienna sat in their bedroom, the one they now shared without exile or distance, watching Dae-young sleep. His arm was wrapped around her waist even in unconsciousness, that possessive touch that once terrified her, now the most comforting thing in her world. She thought about the girl who wore an emerald dress as armor, the woman who almost let silence kill the most important relationship of her life. The wife who learned that real partnership means facing danger together, not hiding from it alone. Marriage to a dangerous man wasn't what romance novels promised. It was harder, more complicated, required constant communication and trust that most people never build. But it was also deeper, more real, more worth fighting for than any fairy tale. Because in a world where loyalty was currency and trust was survival, they'd built something unbreakable, a marriage that refused to die, even when everything tried to kill it. And that was worth every moment of silence they'd survive to find their way back to each other. If this story reminded you that real love isn't about perfect moments, but about choosing each other through the imperfect ones, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear that communication saves what silence destroys. And remember, the strongest relationships aren't the ones that never break. They're the ones that refuse to stay broken. Subscribe for more stories about love that fights back, marriages that survive impossible odds, and the kind of devotion that makes dangerous men go to war. Until next time, keep choosing love over fear, truth over silence, and partnership over protection. Peace.